Income systems do not begin with products, platforms, or promotion. They begin with how demand is structured before anything is built. Demand is not traffic. It is not interest. It is pattern behavior that already exists. Systems that start from demand design themselves around real movement instead of imagined needs, which is why their outputs integrate naturally into existing decisions. Most people start income projects by choosing a product or a skill. That reverses cause and effect. Products are containers. Demand is the force. Without understanding where behavior is already flowing, containers remain empty. Systems built from demand locate themselves inside movements that already repeat, allowing value to attach without persuasion and allowing feedback to arrive immediately in real time. Demand is visible in what people already do, not in what they say they want. It shows up in repeated searches, habitual purchases, persistent complaints, and stable routines. These behaviors form economic currents. Systems succeed when they position themselves along these currents instead of attempting to redirect them. Building upstream from behavior reduces friction and increases adoption over long term. When income systems begin with products, they must create demand. When they begin with demand, they must organize it. Organization is easier than creation. Systems that organize demand design structures that capture, guide, and serve behavior that already exists. This shifts the work from convincing to aligning. Alignment reduces resistance and allows systems to grow through placement rather than pressure. This is why income systems actually begin before business models. They begin at the point where behavior repeats without instruction. Repetition reveals stability. Stability reveals opportunity. Systems that map repetition can design entry points that feel natural. Instead of pulling people in, they place themselves where people are already passing, allowing entry to occur without disruption or forced attention effort. Entry is not exposure. Exposure shows that something exists. Entry means something is accessible inside an existing pattern. Entry requires compatibility. Systems that ignore compatibility rely on attention spikes. Systems that design for compatibility integrate into routines. Integration produces continuity. Continuity produces feedback. This chain is why entry design matters more than visibility for long-term income behavior and system growth. Most failed income attempts skip this layer. They ask what to build instead of where to attach. This produces isolated projects. Isolated projects require constant energy. Systems that start from demand attach to existing energy. That energy carries them forward. Instead of pushing value outward, they position value inside paths people already travel every day without resistance or persuasion cycles. Where systems actually begin is at the intersection of behavior, repetition, and friction. Behavior shows movement. Repetition shows durability. Friction shows opportunity. Systems that locate this intersection can design structures that reduce effort and increase continuity. This is not research. It is observation. The system builder studies patterns before designing solutions, so structures fit reality rather than assumptions over time. Demand-centered beginnings also change risk. Instead of betting on creation, systems align with confirmation. Behavior confirms interest. Patterns confirm persistence. This reduces uncertainty before resources are committed. Systems that begin here do not guess whether something is wanted. They measure whether something is already being acted upon and design around that evidence to guide every early structural decision from start. Beginning from demand also clarifies what not to build. Many components disappear when behavior is understood. Systems become smaller. Smaller systems iterate faster. Faster iteration produces learning. This feedback loop emerges only when systems start where movement already exists. Starting elsewhere delays learning and replaces it with assumption-driven construction that collapses under real-world exposure once attention enters the system structure. Entry design determines who encounters the system. Who encounters the system determines how it evolves. Demand is not uniform. Different behaviors carry different expectations. Systems that misalign entry attract the wrong feedback. That feedback warps development. Systems that design entry intentionally allow the system to learn from the correct population, accelerating alignment instead of distortion over time through proper signals. This is why income systems begin long before monetization. Monetization organizes exchange. Entry organizes encounter. Without encounter, exchange is hypothetical. Systems that rush monetization build transactions without pathways. Systems that begin with entry build pathways before transactions. Pathways make monetization inevitable rather than forced. They create continuity between value, behavior, and economic movement, so revenue flows naturally over time period. Demand-first design also disciplines creativity. Instead of inventing ideas, the builder interprets patterns. Instead of producing options, the system builder clarifies alignment. This reduces waste, it prevents overbuilding, it keeps construction anchored to reality. Systems that respect demand begin constrained, but those constraints create precision, which is what allows scaling later without structural collapse or misdirected expansion under pressure conditions. Beginning from demand reframes what progress looks like. Progress becomes clearer entry, smoother movement, and better alignment, not more features. Each improvement increases how naturally the system fits into behavior. Fit produces adoption. Adoption produces data. Data improves design. This loop is inaccessible to systems that begin with output instead of behavior because they cannot see movement clearly early enough. Systems that start at demand develop different questions. They ask where behavior repeats. They ask what friction exists. They ask what role the system could play. These questions guide architecture. They replace brainstorming with diagnosis. Diagnosis produces targeted structures. Targeted structures integrate faster. This is the difference between constructing systems and experimenting with ideas that never anchor to reality patterns. Entry-centered systems also reveal scale early. If demand pathways are narrow, scale is limited. If pathways are broad, scale potential increases. This is visible before production. Systems that begin with demand see their ceilings before building their floors. This prevents overinvestment into structures that cannot expand. Scale becomes a design choice rather than a surprise later in the process cycle. Where income systems actually begin is where people already move. Builders who start there stop guessing and start structuring. They stop inventing demand and start serving it. This shift changes everything that follows. Architecture becomes clearer. Feedback becomes faster. Distribution becomes easier. Monetization becomes inevitable because the system lives inside behavior instead of outside it and resists fragility over time. The next layer is designing how systems receive people once entry exists. Entry creates contact. Intake creates continuity. Intake determines whether movement becomes relationship or disappears. Understanding beginnings prepares us to design what happens next, because income systems are not defined by what they make, but by how they absorb and organize demand over time into durable economic structures eventually.